Welcome to Architects of Opportunities, a series on founders of nonprofit organizations. We will look at how one person or a few people saw a need in your community and found a way to fill it. Who are the people that are inspired to see a need and bring others together to lend a hand, and not for profit? They are the nonprofit founders. Founders are everyday heroes. They envision possibility and persevere to accomplish it. Founders in all sectors and across the country share a common vision. They want to make a difference. Today, we will introduce you to one organization who makes a contribution to your community. Thanks for being part of the Founders Celebration, and thank you for joining us today for this part of the series. And I'd like to introduce Barbara Lee, the founder of Image for Success, and Susan Friend, a long-term supporter and volunteer. And so thanks very much. And so I want to just start right out and ask you, what gave you the idea, Barbara, to start Image for Success?
I don't know that it was a single idea. I lived in the county, I'm almost a native, and I know that there are such discrepancies, always have been, in the way people live in the county. And I volunteered down in the canal for a long time, maybe 10 years, and I thought I want to move on to something. And there was an article. I went around and talked to different foundations to see if there was something that was needed or something that maybe I could do. And I took a class at USF on executive directory, if that's a word. And but there still wasn't anything that I could see that I could get involved in. And my daughter gave me a copy of the Chronicle, and there was an article in there about a lady in the city who was doing this kind of thing. So I called her and asked her if I could come and talk to her, and perhaps we could work something out. And her retort to me was, Marin County? They're all wealthy, and you have that big company that gives you all money.
The Buck Center, I think she's talking about.
So I said, well, if I did a needs assessment, could I talk to you? Well, yeah. So I did, but before I did that, I asked her if I could meet her. And I went over to the city. She's not a collaborator, and so she wasn't really excited about working with me. But I noticed that she was giving one outfit to these ladies for their interview, and they're coming off of welfare. And I thought, how do you hold a job when all you own are sweats and one interview outfit? So I came back and did the needs assessment and called cold turkey up to the welfare department. It's called Marin Employment Connection now. And I was put in touch with a lady named Mary Donovan. And it was at the time that Clinton passed the bill, Welfare to Work. So everybody was aware that these people had to go back to work or they'd be in real trouble. Timing is everything when you start something, I have found. And so I told Mary Donovan what I'd like to do, and she said, can you start? I've got 40 women that need clothes to go back to work. So I went home and I thought, I do not want to start a nonprofit. I don't want to do that. It's too much work. It's too hard. I don't want to do it. I woke up in the morning and I thought, oh hell, why not?
Oh hell, why not?
So that's how I started.
That's great.
And Mary Donovan, till she retired, was absolutely wonderful. And it was rough at first, trying to find money and to prove myself to the nonprofits that I wasn't going to harm their clients, that I was hopefully going to help them. So it took a while, but it took off. It took off. People were, and there, goodness knows there are enough clothes in Marin County.
Well, that woman was right.
She was absolutely right.
That's right.
Yeah.
But oftentimes people don't see how diverse we are in Marin County.
No, they don't think about it.
And so, Susan, how did you get involved?
I have been here almost since the beginning, and I was in the corporate world and stepped away from that to begin to raise my daughter. But after 2 years out of work, I decided there was also something else I needed to do. And I saw an article in the Chronicle about Barber and Image for Success. So I came and I applied and I started as a volunteer, and that was 14 years ago.
I started at Homeward Bound. Again,
Oh,
collaboration,
okay.
which is my middle name. I didn't have an office. I didn't have a place to dress the people or get the clothes. And I knew Mary Kay Sweeney from being in the community. And she was with Homeward Bound, and she was the associate director. And so I went to them and asked them if I could be under their corporate 501c3 till I got mine. And they wanted to know what I was going to do, of course, and they said, no, you can't do it, but you can be a program of ours.
Oh, so you started out with
Makes me cry now.
Oh, yeah.
They were really the first ones that really had confidence in me. So they were wonderful, and we were right down here on Greenfield. I was in, they gave me a desk and about a quarter of the space where I could put clothes. And then they moved down to, there was a consolidation of all of the nonprofits, which was a genius idea, to have them all in one place so all the social workers would know what was available for their clients. So we all moved down to Kerner. And they gave me an office again, and a phone, and a warehouse.
Oh my gosh.
And we started in there.
And how did you get the word out to people to bring clothes in?
I don't know how we did that. I guess the volunteers that came, or I'd speak before some groups and churches and things. We kind of were scarce there for a while with clothes. We couldn't give more than 1 or 2 outfits, and that really always bothered me. But then the clothes started coming in more and more, and one day we had a parking lot sale. We'd sell the things that we knew that weren't right for work and this kind of thing, and weren't always in the greatest of condition. We'd sell them for 50 cents in the parking lot. You know, if people wanted to come and buy them. It was a little income for us. And it was a foggy, terrible day, and this woman came with 3 children. They didn't have any coats. They weren't warmly dressed. They had flops on. She wasn't warmly dressed. I couldn't stand it. I said, I wish we had some sweaters for you, and so forth. She said, all our clothes were stolen at the laundromat.
Oh my gosh.
So that's the genesis of when we started with the children. And then the men, it was illogical to follow them. When you heard what happened at San Quentin, they turned them out at that time with $35 in the clothes they had worn. So there was another market for us then. It just kind of grew by word of mouth, don't you think?
Definitely.
Beth Ashley, who was with the IJ, was our PR. And she'd periodically do an article about us, and so bless her, she put us out there. And then I was asked to speak a few places, and that's how it kind of started.
And now you serve children, men, and women.
We're the only ones in the United States that do that.
And how do you talk about what you do? You give a certain amount of clothes and people come to you? You give 6 months worth, or how does that work?
We give 2-week wardrobes.
2-week wardrobes.
Underwear all the way through to
Everything.
umbrellas.
Oh my goodness, okay. And
New underwear.
And so then that's been another process of getting that. You buy that, you get donations. Is that Susan? That's
The
something
genius
you've done?
with that, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you did that, Susan.
One of the things that I oversee are gifts in kind, and I work with manufacturers to try to get clothing donated here. And sometimes it is underwear. We have to give that new. And one of the reasons why we have the store in the front of the rest of the location is to generate a revenue so we can buy new underwear, new socks, bras, pantyhose, that type of thing. It's in addition to many other of the overhead expenses to run a nonprofit this size and the size we've now become. Last year we served over 1,500 men, women, and children. This year we plan on serving even more than that. And I think that what we just talked about earlier, every step of the way our growth has come from word of mouth and getting more volunteers on board. They all have friends. They all tell their friends about us. Speaking in the public eye, as Barbara has mentioned. and now in the modern age, social media. And since we've been doing our website and Facebook and things of that nature, we're really getting donations that are coming through the door. Beautiful things from this county that are donated, to get straight to our clients. And our clients go out thrilled, absolutely thrilled.
So these are clients who are seeking work, seeking housing, perhaps?
Could be a number of things. Their life is falling apart for one reason or another. It used to be that they were just job interviews. And then it became apparent that a woman had been abused and left her husband and she didn't have anything. So why not give her clothes?
Right.
If we have them, we give them. So it's kind of covered a broad spectrum. It isn't always just for job interviews, nor for the men. And I think that's what we're about, is to fill that void.
And you have dressers. You have people who
Oh,
help
that's
them
the
choose the
best.
clothes.
Yeah.
And how does that work?
Well, I have a great thing about people being economically deprived and not be treated with dignity just because they don't have money or they look a certain way. And so I wanted this to be like the women or people who go to Nordstrom's and have personal shopper. And so that's the way the volunteers are trained. There are 2 always. And they treat them just like they're in Nordstrom's. I'm so proud of the volunteers.
How many volunteers do you have?
Actively right now, about 100.
Oh, fantastic.
It's some of them are personal shoppers. Some work in the retail store. Some work in the back here processing the clothing and prepping the clothing to go out into the boutiques. It takes a lot of volunteers to run this program, and we wouldn't be here without our volunteers.
Nope.
And we have some that Sally, who's out there today, she comes twice a week, and that's 8 times in a month that she's here helping out.
Wow.
And
fantastic.
and then the personal shoppers will sign up for 1 or 2 sessions. They bring the client in, put them in the dressing room, and then they bring the clothes to the client. A lot of the clients that we get here haven't shopped for themselves in years. They have no idea what size they wear. They have no idea what look they should be wearing to flatter their figure. And our shoppers help them with all that.
Oh boy, and I've been here when sometimes the bags are showing up, or perhaps there are bunches of bags, and so your volunteers go through all the bags and pull out the clothes that will work for your clients, ones that maybe should go to Goodwill or Salvation
Exactly.
Army, and then are there some that go to consignment stores?
Yes.
There are some that do go to consignment stores. It is another wonderful source of revenue for us. When we get labels such as Prada and Gucci and Hermes, which we do get donated, that is an item that we might send out to a consignment store. And then that money comes right back into the program to continue to move forward.
Sometimes it's difficult for the clients to do the upkeep on some of these high-end things, like in St. John's Knit, or they can't afford to take their clothes to the cleaners, so
Right. Yeah.
it works.
To ask you about the way you collaborate with other organizations, because I know that I had a group called the Career Hour, and you were kind enough to give us vouchers, and these folks looking for jobs could come over. And how else do you collaborate?
Well, the staff goes out and speaks at various organizations. What do we've got? 60 now nonprofits that we serve.
Oh my gosh, 60.
And
wow.
It's tough now because it used to be that the nonprofits had, the other nonprofits or organizations had budget that they could work with,
Right.
and now they have nothing.
Yes.
So they could pay us, give us a fee for the client. So that was part of our income. That's changed radically now, so we're always looking for ways to make income to operate. But the collaboration, if you don't collaborate, I don't understand people who don't, because we're all for the same thing.
That's right.
We're not trying to take anything away from anybody at all. You know, we're trying to help.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only been a couple of times that I could not get through that we could help their clients without any remuneration or anything if they just send them over. But at the time I quit, there were 46 or so.
Uh-huh.
So out of that, you know, only 2 didn't refer.
That's not.
Even I was at a luncheon the other day, and one of the women that were at the luncheon is on the Red Cross, and she said she had been late, and she said that there had been a terrific fire, and she said that the people, it was in the mobile home when we had the big rainstorm, and she said that sounds crazy, a fire in a rainstorm, but that's the way it was. Anyway, they lost everything.
Oh.
So I said, call Image. She said, could we do that? I said, absolutely.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether you're going for a job interview or not.
When did you leave Image? And you're still here. You're here a lot.
I left in 2000.
2000.
Mhm.
So that's when. Then you had an executive director after that
We did.
for a while, and then Diane.
Bless you for sending us Diane.
Oh, she's wonderful.
She is wonderful.
Yeah. So she came in, I don't even remember, was it 2009, 10, something like
I
that?
think 2009.
Hmm. So she's been here quite a long time.
Mhm.
And when do you have your annual
Nice, you should
event?
ask.
Yes. When is that?
This year it's May 1st
May 1st. All right. I'll be
at
there.
Embassy Suites.
Good.
I think I've been to many of them.
Good.
They're always fun.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
And you bring in a client or two
We
to
do.
talk about what has happened to them since they were able to have clothes. Don't you just feel better when you have on something, that's new to you? I
Absolutely.
feel marvelous, and you can go out and do anything. And that's how
My
people
brother
feel.
used to dress in the men's, and he's a musician. So some of the men who come through, the musicians are, they're pretty hip. And my
They're
brother
edgy.
is hip, edgy and hip. That's a good word. Hip no longer is hip. Anyway, this young man had his girlfriend with him, and he had on, the big basketball pants and red high tops and so forth. My brother has exquisite taste. And so he said, if you're going for a job interview, you need a suit. And said, I've never worn a suit. Well, you're going to try one on. So my brother picked out the tie and the shirt and the suit, and that young man went in and tried it on, and he came out, and my brother said, you can't wear those red Converse. You have to wear wingtips. Anyway, Brian sent him back in the room, and he came out, and he had this big grin on his face.
There was a young man that I met several years ago, and he was a little down on his luck and looking for an apartment. And a few years later, I saw him at Safeway as a manager, and he spoke at one of your events.
Oh,
and I know
yes.
that he had come in here and gotten clothes, and just his whole life began to change.
There are 3 things you have to have if you're going to live. It's food, housing, and clothes. You can't get by without that.
And dignity.
Yeah. And
Gives you
people
dignity.
judge you when you walk towards them. They judge you how you look. I'm sorry it's that way, but it is.
So what do you see next for this organization, this wonderful organization? How do you see it in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, this doesn't always meet with great approval, but I would like to see us expand out to West Marin.
Oh.
I think we're underserved. They're underserved out there. It's a different kind of client, perhaps, but there's nobody out there doing this kind of thing.
That's right.
And I think we have such good name recognition now that we could expand this concept, more and see that it's done this way.
Wonderful. Well, is there anything you'd like to let the public know as we close today?
I can't think of anything. I just want to say how grateful I am for the staff. They're all terrifically underpaid. They're part-time, but they give all kinds of their own time to, and this organization wouldn't exist if it weren't for them.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much,
Thank you.
both of you.
And I would like to thank the public
Oh,
for
yes.
their
Oh,
beautiful donations.
Yes, indeed.
And for telling their friends that we're here, and for We have donors that have been donating for 10 years. I recognize them from 10 years ago. And they come back, and then I hear from someone else. My friend told me about this place. And just as without the volunteers, we wouldn't exist. We wouldn't exist without the clothing.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, we can thank the people of Marin.
So what I'm curious about is, and what all nonprofits go through is the tough times. How did that work for you? I'm sure there have been some. And
Mhm.
how did you make it through, Barbara?
I don't really know a lot of the times. I remember waking up in the middle of the night and thinking, I can't do this anymore. I can't try and get money. It's too much. And but then, the next day would come. But at one point that Susan was talking about, I realized I couldn't pay the rent. And I didn't know what to do, but I'd had lunch with a lady who used to be the development director for Homeward Bound, and I just sort of let it out. And she called me, and she said, "Why don't you come to breakfast with a couple of us tomorrow?" And I was so honored to be invited with these ladies. And I went, and there were two other ladies there, and Jennifer, and one of them was Mary Kay Sweeney. And Jennifer said, "Tell them your story." So I was kind of humiliated, to tell the truth. And so I did. So they said, "Well, we can't give you any money, but we can tell you what to do." I said, "Please." So they said, "First you go to the owner and you tell him you can't pay the rent this month, but you will pay it next month, and I can give you $200 or $300 now." I said, "Can you do that with the landlord?" They said, "You bet." Okay. And then you go through your list of personal donors, people who personally give you money, not foundations and this kind of thing. And you write them a letter and tell them that they've supported you before and you're in this real pickle. I didn't have enough money myself to pay the rent, or I would have done it. Anyway, I did. We're still in business.
Oh, for you. Good for you.
So the money came, and the landlord was okay. He didn't want to get rid of us. We had a whole suite of offices, that he wanted rented. So there was another collaboration that worked.
That worked, and you reached out for help.
Yeah,
And
I
you
had to
believed-
get over my
You're
pride.
right. Yeah. And you believed in yourself, and you just kept going. When you saw you had a worthy
It was for the people.
Right.
It was not my glory. It was for the
Mhm.
people that I knew needed what we could give them.
Well, Barbara, how many years did you work hours and hours and hours and hours every week before you took a paycheck?
Probably 2.5 to 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Well, I had to raise the money to pay myself.
That's right.
There was that.
So if you figure what your salary should have been, that's a big donation.
I had a very generous son who had a foundation at the time himself, a little foundation. And when he heard what I was going to do, I needed money to do my corporate status through the volunteer center. And it was something like $3,500. So I asked him if he would fund us, and he did. This money. And then some woman came out of the blue. We loved her.
She had a spree? She was
One of the founders with
Sissy
the spree.
Tompkins?
Do you remember her?
It was
Anyway, she said, "Oh, I'll give you $20,000.
Ah,
God. Oh, really? And so she did.
fantastic.
Yeah, so she helped get us started,
An angel benefactor.
Angel benefactor, yeah. And she was
Wonderful.
with us for a little while.
It's
great.
It's great.
It's what it takes in this community, is collaboration.
Mhm.
Well, you brought it all together, Barbara. It's magical. And thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I help nonprofits hire staff and leaders to carry on their founder's vision. And so I've seen hundreds of nonprofits contribute to our community. We created Architects of Opportunities to share that with you. Now, nonprofit founders will tell you they don't do it alone. If you're among the 25% of us who are volunteers or volunteer board members or staff or donors, thank you. And if you're not, please join us in making a difference.